Animal Farm was famously made into a cartoon in the early 1950s. More than 40 years later, Hallmark Entertainment in America decided that they'd have another shot, this time with live action. How did they do that? Animatronics. You don't hear much about animatronics these days because the technique of taking a fake creature, stuffing it with electronics and making it move that way with the voice synced in with the dialogue, that was superseded by CGI. But it was a big thing in the 90s. The history of it stretched back to 1964 when there were animatronic birds in Disney's Mary Poppins, but it really came into its own in 1993 with Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park, where you had a Tyrannosaurus Rex that was absolutely stuffed with this stuff, full-size Tyrannosaurus Rex. And then after that there was the film Babe, about a pig that wants to be a sheepdog. Now, once you've made Babe, it's not a big step to making a remake of Animal Farm.
This is the story of a brave soul.
Hello, sir. Get out of here.
The effects for Babe were supervised by John Stephenson, one of the top guys at Jim Henson's Creature Shop. And in the late 90s he was approached by Robert Halmy, the chairman of Hallmark Entertainment, who decided to make this film of Animal Farm as a TV movie. Now, Halmy had form as far as this was concerned. He was going from classic book to classic book, Alice in Wonderland, Gulliver's Travels, you name it, and making films of these things, and they were very popular with the American networks.
It was extraordinary. You have no idea how I felt.
Gulliver's Travels.
This would be Stevenson's directorial debut, and he was given a draft script to work with by an American writer that he didn't like very much. He thought that it Disneyfied the whole thing. And so he brought in a British writer, Alan Janes, to redo it. And together they tried to keep to the spirit of Orwell's short novel, although, having said that, there were pressures all the time coming from the Americans at Hallmark to veer away from that, let's say.
I was old, I was almost blind, but I could still remember.
There was some talk of filming it in Melbourne, Australia, but in the end it was done in a very picturesque valley in County Wicklow, Ireland in 1998.
The pig stayed inside the barn and counted the hay.
Only 25 bales of hay today.
We need more effort.
I can work harder.
Some of the sequences were very complicated to shoot, such as the Animal Revolution, where Farmer Jones, played by Pete Postlethwaite, is driven from his own farm. There was a lot of rotoscoping and green screen going on with that one. Most of the animals you see in the film are real farmyard animals. Some are electronic, like Boxer the cart horse. The back half of them doesn't exist. They're leaning over a fence, and they're so good you can't tell the difference. There's a little bit of quite primitive CGI, such as a rat that Stevenson isn't fond of at all. Also a bit where Snowball is climbing down a ladder. American Cinematographer magazine was very impressed with this at the time. It thought that it looked seamless, but as is the way of these things, you watch it now, it just looks awful. When I spoke to the director for my book, he was very matter-of-fact about the film. He's proud of it, but he admits it looks very dated, and he says it's a very easy film to criticise, which it is, especially if you're a literary pedant. The story is narrated by Jessie the sheepdog, who's a minor character in the book and is voiced here by Julia Ormond.
And so in the middle of the night, the hens sacrificed their eggs.
This is so wrong.
Bits of it deviate markedly from the novel, such as the propaganda films that the animals make. And in an echo of the 1950s, Hallmark insisted on a happy ending, which is absolutely cringe-inducing.
It was time for us to return to that place that had once been full of such hope. I wondered if anything was still alive. I knew in my heart that Napoleon had fallen, a victim of his own madness. But what of the others?
The walls have now fallen. The scars have healed. And life goes on.
And what of the future?
There are new owners. We will not allow them to make the same mistakes.
On the other hand, parts of the movie, which premiered on Ted Turner's TNT network on the 3rd of October 1999, are very faithful indeed to Orwell. When the animals explore the farmhouse, for instance, it's just how he described it, with raw hams hanging in the kitchen and a lithograph of Queen Victoria on the drawing room mantelpiece. There's also the spectacle of geese crapping all over the humans, which never happened in Harris and Bachelor's cartoon. In the novel, the animals have an anthem, Beasts of England. Here it's Beasts of the World.
Beasts of the world, we shall unite. Rise up and ready for the fight. Soon or late the day will be when man's defeated and we are free. Soon or late the day will be when man's defeated and we are free.
The film was released theatrically in parts of Europe and Asia. It's very easy to find on budget DVD, and according to the director, it's in every university in the world. That's it from me. In my next video, I'll be looking at the centenary of Orwell's birth, 2003, and 2 very different biopics. Thanks for watching.
Good evening, George Orwell. Perhaps we should start with you telling us a little about yourself.
I had a cup of tea. It was a kind of baptism. After that, my fears vanished. I was very happy. Here I was among the lowest of the low.